Welcome to another edition of Digging In, where we take a deeper look at South Dakota High School volleyball. Jason Andera, Midco Sports, along with Haley Dotseth and Darren Tipton of Adrenaline Volleyball. And we've got a lot to get to this week. The last couple of weeks, it's just been learning a little bit by a little bit. We're in for a couple of big weeks of volleyball coming up here soon. It's going to be a lot of fun to kind of follow how this thing goes. What just thoughts initially on how the season's going, Darren?
Yeah, I think Class B continues to be crazy. There's another team every week, and there's 3 or 4 that most people aren't even talking about, that haven't been in the rankings, that have been good. And so that continues to be such an awesome story. And we've talked to coaches all around the state that are excited about that as well. So that's doing that. Class A, Class AA, the top continue to do what they've been doing, but other teams beneath them are shuffling. And I think now the cool thing is I started looking at the PowerPoints, or whatever they're called now, but started looking at the PowerPoints finally, and now you're getting into the matches. When you get matches against better teams, it's become important for November already, and getting that momentum, because there's some pretty stacked regions, but we'll save that for a few weeks from now.
Yeah, we're getting right into it. And let's start where we always start, is who has been hot. And these are teams that are on a roll, and I don't think anybody is on more of a roll than Aberdeen Christian and what they've done in the last week.
Yeah, and 11 straight wins. Their only losses to Warner this year, and knocking off previously number 1 Wolsey Wessington. Great 5-set match against Roncalli. They're going to continue to be tested with matches coming up with Falkton and Northwestern in the near future, and that just another great team. And they're that team we talked about with Ipswich at the beginning of the year, where there's some of these teams that until they get that big win that gets them over the hump, well, I think that Wolsey Wessington win and then the big 5-set win against Roncalli have done that for Aberdeen Christian. And so really interested to see what they do in the next week or two. But 11 straight wins and some new faces in their program this year. But a team that continues to grow, also never been to the SODAC 16. So experience a lot of success. And just, again, I'm interested to see who that team will be next week that we haven't talked about, because they were a team a week ago we haven't talked about, but a strong senior class for them, and they, like I said, 11 wins and their only losses to Warner this year.
Yeah, that's been fun to watch Aberdeen Christian evolve as a program, getting some really big wins. Another team that's evolved as a program, and we have talked about, is Bridgewater-Emery, but they put on a show at their own tournament.
Yeah, I'll take your 11 straight wins, and I'm going to raise it to 13.
Okay.
Bridgewater-Emery, 13-0. Not only are they having a perfect season as far as total games won, they still haven't dropped a set yet, and I know that's something that we talked about last week, but they've really hit the peak of their season. So I think if they continue this run, they might be one of those favorites for PowerPoints, obviously depending on the schedules of the rest of Class B. But again, a team that takes on a team like Chester that just dominates a Warner, who's been having such a great season. They turn around and sweep them 2-0 because it was a tournament. Just a very, very strong team, and they're hungry for it. And they rematch Chester, I think, next week or this weekend. So big week again for Bridgewater-Emery.
Yeah, I just think with Bridgewater-Emery, as we looked and said, they're undefeated. Maybe their schedule hadn't matched up against some other teams, but now it has with a Chester team that has been on a roll and has been hot the last couple of weeks, is healthy and playing everybody. And so for them, that was a huge win. And to get that rematch here, I think it's Saturday, but just to continue, I know that was a huge momentum boost for them, and it's a real valid victory.
While we're talking about Chester, that's not my team that's hot, but I just have to mention that's been a team that's played really well. They lost a couple to some big schools early on. It makes their record, not look as pretty as some of the others, but I think they're right up there with the cream of the crop.
Yeah, especially now that they're all healthy too.
Right.
I know. I think it was last week we talked about Brecken Ewald and just the difference that she's made for that team. But again, once it comes, you got to get to postseason, obviously.
Right.
But they're going to have more of those challenges and more of those kind of grind out wins, I think, than some of these other teams whose, like you said, schedule and record looks really pretty on paper.
Yeah, and I think, they had a big win, 5-set win over Garrettson. They get a rematch tonight. With Garrettson, it'll be a big match. They play a strong schedule. And I think it was just bad timing with Brecken being out, going against AA schools earlier in the year. And, so when you look, they're definitely that's a team that you need to look at their overall schedule, not their record. And a little surprised they weren't in the rankings, but it's hard. It's hard. I think if you put a couple other teams that were in the rankings in that Huron tournament, they might not have come out unblemished either. But having Ewell back is huge for Chester, and the rematch with Garrettson, and that's a rivalry game. So one thing about Gene, and we talked about some of these top programs, is they're always challenging themselves with their schedule.
Yeah, for sure. My team, who has been hot, let's talk about Colman-Egan a little bit. This is a team that made the state tournament last year. I can't raise you on the 13 wins in a row, but 9 in a row, pretty good after that second game of the season where they lost to Arlington. Haven't lost since. The level of competition hasn't been like some of these other Class B schools, but we don't talk about these teams that aren't in the rankings, and I think Colman-Egan deserves some credit for some big wins against Hamlin and Castlewood, teams that are right on the fringe of being ranked. So that's a team to watch, just to keep in the background. They have been building some confidence, I would say, winning over these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think last year was their very first program state tournament,
Right.
and they graduated, I think, almost their entire lineup. So program really that's hot in the moment.
Yeah, and I think we talked about the preseason special was, Coach O'Hara, Chester had talked about them and said, don't sleep on them because they graduated. They have athletes coming and a program in place. But they're the same thing last year. They flew under the radar and had this amazing season. And if you looked at that region, Bridgewater-Emery, Chester, and Colman-Egan, pretty convincing. And right now, I think they're actually ahead in power points, slightly ahead of Chester. So they're going to be battling, and they play each other late in the season as well.
Right.
But a team that will be there all year because of their schedule and because of their talent.
Some teams that are definitely on a roll. Those are all Class B teams. Let's stay in Class B as we talk about some under-the-radar stars. And one player you want to point out, Darren, is from Aberdeen Christian.
Yeah, Mary Feitz is, I think, the emotional, positive leader of that team. And again, someone who's on a balanced team with multiple weapons with some of their new additions this year. But Mary gave her a future 50 and jumped right in. Just a great all-around game. And I think Haley had a chance to talk with her coach, and she'll talk about her leadership. Just a solid kid that has been there through the growing of the program, now as a senior, and just, some of it's not talked about very often, but is one of those anchors on that team, both leadership, attitude, and ability-wise for Aberdeen Christian. And then what I just wanted to throw in too, sorry, I put 2 down.
That's all right, do it. Go for it.
But I want to
talk about players.
Taryn Heibult, senior DS for Washington, and she's one that we talk about the AA level, and a lot of times these programs, an O'Gorman, a Washington, where there's really solid kids that don't get their varsity shot until their senior year. But she has done a great job in their back row, filling in, and we talked all season about it won't be the offense of Washington, it'll be the defense. And with her and Shetton in the back, getting her chance, playing DS in the back row has been more than solid. And the other night she had 4 straight aces against Harrisburg in their win. But just one of those kids that, unless you really watch teams over and over, doesn't get mentioned, but is just as important to that team because of her attitude and sticking with the program. That those are kids that are fun to watch and see them get their opportunity and make a big splash when they get that. So congrats to her, and it's good to give those grinders a shout out, and she's that for sure. So
excellent. Haley, Carly Vanderwerff out of Platte Geddes, there's a reason their team's doing well, and she's one of those big reasons.
Yeah, I think when we talk about Carly Vanderwerff, and we've seen her grow over the summers being part of our Rising Stars, I think 2 years in a row. Platte Geddes, I believe, is at the top of Class B in power points wise, and she's one of the top attackers in Class B because of her power. She had 31 kills in 5 sets against Burke, which is crazy numbers against anyone. And that Burke match was a pretty grind-out match. I think you talk about back and forth. Those 5-set matches is really tough to do. But we love Carly because, like I said, of her power, she is not afraid to take big swings in big moments, obviously with that 31 kill performance.
Yeah, that's Those are crazy numbers. 31 kills in a match. They were feeding her. The other team knew they were going to feed her, and she still got it done because she's so powerful.
Yep.
The player I want to bring up is Macy Koupal, and this Wagner team we talked about as a team that could cause some rustle in the middle of Class A, and they've gotten stronger and stronger. I just got to talk about her play and the amount of errors that she has cut down on from the first half of what she's played so far this year, and then the last 6 or 7 matches where she's been spot on, and she's got several different hitters to feed. And I've seen Emma Yost and Avari Brewer, I think is how you say it, Kaya Kildgaard, and a lot of the underclassmen on this team. And she's just a sophomore when we're talking about Macy Koupal. I think there's a bright future in Wagner.
I think she does a really good job. When you have to mention 3 or 4 names
Right.
even, that's a plus on the setter. That means that she's feeding those different attackers, and obviously they have to be able to handle those sets. But when a team can be successful feeding multiple players, I think that's a great job for Koupal.
All right, let's go on to statement matches, and we've had a couple statement matches over the last few weeks. One we want to talk about is Dakota Valley. How good are they, Darren Tipton?
I think we'll find out tonight,
Yeah.
and we'll find out Saturday. I think you'll know a lot more about Dakota Valley by the end of Saturday night. And so it's not just a statement match, it's a statement weekend, I think, for them. They're obviously Sioux Falls Christian, where we'll be tonight. It's the rivalry. It's been the rematch the last several state A championship games. And that's one of those that, again, it may not be dictated in a win or a loss, but how they compete. We're a little surprised it's a result maybe against Harrisburg a week ago, but then they go into the Pentagon tournament and they face Warner right away. And I think they could possibly face O'Gorman, Brandon Valley also in that tournament. So you're going to know by the end of the weekend exactly how they are and if they're a legitimate contender for that Class A title. It's a big weekend for them.
Yeah, we're going to find out, like you said, a lot about Dakota Valley and where they sit. Another couple teams we're going to find out a lot about. Brandon Valley, Jefferson. Haley, what do you have about this one?
Yeah, so I picked this matchup because tonight, they kind of go at each other, and they've been one of those teams that they're right around that 5-6 kind of mark, and they've stayed around that mark the whole year. Definitely been grinding out, especially when you think of Jefferson in their very first year of the program. Brandon Valley's been up and down, so I think this is a really good test for them to see, a very even match. They're going to have to grind out a win, and I think that can be a huge confidence booster for either team, whoever ends up on top. So that's why I chose.
Yeah, the middle of Class AA, there's a lot of teams that have an opportunity in the second half of the season to really establish themselves. This one would go a long ways to doing just that. My team to talk about for statement matches or statement week or statement maybe a couple of weeks for these teams is these Class A West River teams that are off to good starts. Hill City, Rapid City Christian. Can't deny they've done the job so far, but it's time to make that statement. They head to the Sanford Pentagon both to play matches against Class AA teams, and then even next week and the following week, they've got some tough matches where they play some really good competition. You got Hill City taking on Phillip next week, and then Rapid City Christian takes on Pierre. So some real opportunities to see if they belong in that top tier ranking of Class A. I think these are two programs heading in the right direction, but do they belong at the very, very top?
Right, and I think, again, there's matches. Hill City will match up against O'Gorman, which is tough for anybody right away Saturday, but also in that bracket or in their pool, they have a chance to play. They could get matched up against Dakota Valley, Warner, Northwestern, getting another solid team. Anyways, they're going to get 3 solid matches on Saturday for sure. And where do they go with that? Because stealing 1 or 2 of those will do a lot for power points at the end of the year. But when we talked the Rapid City Christian staff, probably a little bit more. They put these schedules and these tournaments on their schedule for a reason, because they know come November they have to play in matches like this. So again, it's maybe not so much win-loss. Yeah, they want to win, but again, it's how they compete
Right.
when they get those matches 3 in a row. And then I believe they face off against each other, and that might be next week as well. So they're going to get that battle against each other, which will be huge for the number 1 seed in their region. But this is more about them trying to build their program and just playing more, high-level competition. And City, I mean, they're going to get Dakota Valley first with, Rapid City Christian actually plays, they might play Western Christian. They play Western Christian, which will be a test, and then Hill City plays O'Gorman right away. Yeah. So it will be good for them competition-wise, but just see how they compete all weekend.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Now let's move on to some of our Player of the Year candidates. This part of the show, every week, we highlight some of the top players in each of the classes, and throughout the season, we hope to name enough to make a nice pool of candidates. Let's continue adding to those candidates. Mya Boomsma out of Wellesley, Wessington. What can you tell us about her?
Had an awesome game against Sanborn Central Woonsock the other night. We actually watched the whole thing. Talked about her and her power at camp, explosive-wise. I was really impressed with Hadley Carlson a couple weeks ago, and she reminds me of her. But she has the all-around game, and her defense and her passing. She does as much when she's in the back row as when she's in the front. But when they set her in rhythm, she is explosive. Great job going cross court. Maybe show a ton of variety of shots, but extremely powerful. And then she had a huge service run that kind of gave them an advantage. So maybe doesn't have the individual stats that you would see from maybe a Vanderwerff or somebody like that, but it's because they have 4 or 5 other options, which is good. But she, I think, is their go-to. And extremely powerful, has a serve game, has a defensive game, and so just a great all-around player that, again, I think could fit into rosters at any level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's for sure. Sioux Falls Christian, we've talked a little bit about Sydney Timms as a possible Player of the Year candidate, but they've got more than one on their team, and let's talk about another one.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Katie Van Egdom because I think, it's no secret that she's one of the most talented and physical players in Class A right now, if not in the state as a whole. Of course, verbal to South Dakota State, but I think it's just incredible what she's been able to do, not to mention that she hasn't been totally healthy in all years past, battling some injuries, and has been the target of a ton of Class A teams, and it hasn't really shook her at all. Like, being that senior outside go-to hitter that everyone knows that's where they're going to and that's their power hitter right now, that's really tough, and she's totally handled it. And so I think she has a big week or two on her hands. So I think a lot of that team, their fate is going to come out in the next couple weeks. So that's why I guess I chose Katie Van Egdom.
Yeah, definitely a player to watch, and she can only go up from here because of, like you said, coming off of injuries and being the focal point of that offense. So we've talked about a B player, an A player. I've got a double A player I want to highlight, and I think we've talked about almost every player on Washington throughout this program, whether they're an under-the-radar star or a Player of the Year candidate. But there's another one we have to talk about, Joslyn Richardson, hitting .288 with about 4 kills per set, playing that outside hitter position for Washington, and has just been dominating with double-digit kills almost every time she goes out for a set. She did 19 kills against Harrisburg in her last match, and it's a team that has so many different players that can come at you. She's that one consistent player they know they can go to when they need to get a big kill.
Yeah, she was our breakout Player of the Year last year, and I think that is just the perfect, title for her. She just really embraces whichever role she's in. Last year, she was on the right side pin, and sometimes that can be tough to switch just because it's a completely different angle. But she's hitting almost 300 on the season, which is really, really good as an outside. Sometimes you're getting kind of those shifty balls there. So really impressed with what she's been able to do so far.
Yeah, and all around an even keel with her attitude, and again, just one of those energy givers. But she does another one who does probably as much for them in the back row defensively. As we talk about her kills, but I think it's her solid game defensively that helps Washington. And shout out, I think, to Macy Melchow for being able to step in and play that setter role, because in the summer we didn't know where Jocelyn would be, and I think they're a better team with her being able to play there. And so Melchow filling that role of setter. and allowing Richardson to play all the way around has been huge for Washington. But yeah, just even keel at a high level consistently.
Yeah, and Richardson, just a junior, really coming on strong this season. All right, time for the free ball. We have a lot of other stuff we just want to talk about because we haven't had a chance to. And one of those things is that so many good teams come into the Pentagon this weekend, right?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a huge chance for a team like Dakota Valley, who's only played, I think, 5 or 6 matches total this season, just to kind of grind out some maybe lineup things, doing different defensive things. I think playing multiple matches in one day really shows coaches what their players are going to be able to do. So I think huge day for everyone.
Yeah, and in both waves, you look at Colman-Egan's going to be there. I think, Arlington with another chance. And Arlington's just that team for me until I really went and watched them, and we watched them in the triangular at the beginning of the year. I realized they've dropped 3 matches, but they've all been maximum sets, and they dropped them to Northwestern, Wolsey, Wessington, and Warner.
Right.
And any of those turns around, and they're 2 or 3 in the state, and so they have a chance. But you look at Warner, you look at Northwestern in that what they call the top pool, I guess. Winners there, and Winners going to get 3 or 4 solid matches. So I remember a couple years ago when Warner had everybody was 8th graders that year. They got runner-up to Northwestern, and they were below 500. They came in and it did exactly what Haley said. They worked and finalized their lineup, and it's like everything that happened before the Pentagon tournament, they figured it out, and then they started rolling from there on out and went on to be a below 500 team, and then ended up 3rd place in the state. So this is the time, I think you're finalizing things. You need to get momentum, and some teams are going to get that chance because they're going to get 3 or 4 solid matches. And there's 12 other teams that have that opportunity we didn't even touch on. And so it's going to be interesting who comes out of that with a 3-in-1 day, 4-in-0 day, etc.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Anything else you guys want to tell us about what you guys are covering?
We will be live from the Sioux Falls Christian Dakota Valley match. I don't believe anyone else has won a Class A title since 2010, so that'll be a really nice match between those two, and we'll be live on our live ticket TV site, which is liveticket.tv.adrenaline, so tune into that. And other than that, we've got our regular scheduled program.
Yeah, so that'll be 4 to 6 tonight, and then Saturday we'll be at the Pentagon. Off and on, getting a ton of highlights, some player interviews, and so awesome that they're all in one facility like that, and all that talent in one facility is really cool. So encourage volleyball fans, if you don't have anything else to do, and your college football team's not any good like mine is, then go to the Pentagon and watch some great volleyball. But yeah, that's where we'll be, and then Haley doing her Monday show, and we'll just start gearing up for postseason here.
Yeah, we're into that second half run where we're going to see some teams really take that trajectory that they need going toward the playoffs. It'll be a lot of fun, and a lot of that starts, like you said, at the Pentagon. But tons of great matches all over the state of South Dakota to look up to. That'll do it. We did it. Digging in for this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Digging In.